Hi, my name is Josh, and my Honors in the Arts project is The Gouverneur, a live theatrical comedy about the life of Gouverneur Morris, the funniest founding father that no one knows. So basically, the entire premise of the show is just the story of his life, from his birth in New York to growing up during the Revolutionary era and being one of the key proponents of independence in New York State, to eventually becoming the key writer of the Constitution, the federal Constitution in 1787, to going to Paris, and being the American ambassador to France during the French Revolution, then coming back to the United States and being instrumental in helping create the Erie Canal, being in the Senate. But really, this play is also about the characters that surround Morris. So most notably, our narrator, and one of the most important characters in Morris's life and in The Gouverneur is Anne, known as Nancy Randolph, who later becomes his wife. But in the play, basically, she takes us through everything that is happening and acts as our guide, to an era that not many of us are familiar with. So it's a really, really reassuring thing to have her. Then there's also the characters of Actor 1, Actor 2, and Actor 3. Basically, they act as kind of the chorus, guiding the audience as well and playing many, many different roles, from James Madison to Talleyrand to unknown opponent of independence. So these people are there throughout the entire play, diving seamlessly into these roles. There are also characters in France, like King Louis, and most notably Adele, who is Morris's lover in France. So basically, the play is organized into 2 acts, each act about an hour long, a little bit less. So really, it was a beautiful, beautiful production. We had a live reading of it about last week at the end of May. And the goal, I think, of the whole project, why I did this project, was to bring alive to the stage a story and a life that had not yet been told. So, the goal of theater, really, in my opinion, is to bring alive and make something present for many that seems, gone, a distant past. Ben Brantley of the New York Times said about Hamilton, quote, it persuasively transfers a thoroughly archived past into an unconditional present tense. And absolutely, that's what I tried to do with the Gouv, as I like to call him. The present tense is constant throughout the production, whether it be in the modern humor and the snide references that I make, but also in the way that the characters talk and their personalities. So it's really 18th century characters speaking like they belong on a 21st century college campus. The other aspect of the Gouv on the stage, why it's so important, is that, quote, it thoroughly archives the past. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this project was because it would allow me to maintain a strict, devotion to the history, which is my academic training. I'm a history major. So basically, it definitely maintains a very steady devotion to the text. And the theater is the perfect way to really show off history, because in many ways, a history play, a play about history, is the original art form. What are the first stories that were put on stage? Well, it was the stories that people knew, because that was the only thing they could come up with. So they just reenacted things. And throughout time, this has been, one of the most popular forms of theater, obviously from Shakespeare all the way up to today. Beyond Hamilton, we have plays like All the Way and the musical 1776 that really paved the way for me to create The Gouverneur. And I think what makes history different on the stage and what makes it so much better than the textbook is that, again, it comes alive. We get to see what it was really like. You get to be, quote, in the room where it happens as an audience member. And it makes the history, for many, so much more interesting and present, which is so important. Like, for example, in The Gouverneur, I bring the audience through the Constitutional Convention. And in my understanding, this is really the first in-depth look at what the conversations were happening on the stage. For so long they've been in these archived texts. No one really looks at Madison's notes, but I brought those notes to the stage, which is super, super important. And the next aspect, of why a theatrical comedy, why comedy in general, is because comedy is more than any other the perfect medium for Morris. Not only was he actually, funny in real life, he was extremely witty, but in many sense, comedy and satire is a really important form of theater to describe politics. It allows us as an audience to kind of laugh and see the absurdity of the times. Like, for example, again, going back to the Constitutional Convention, seeing how absurd it was that these men, like Madison, Washington, and others, our stand-in for all the other characters at the convention, were arguing, for the continuation of slavery, even though they actively professed, that all men are created equal. It's bringing us into the absurdity and saying, wait, that's just ridiculous. What are they talking about? Obviously, you don't need satire to know how ridiculous that is, but it really drives home that point. Another instance of where satire really, speaks to the play is in Paris during the French Revolution. And I really, amped up the mob to really show how crazy the violence was and, the seemingly bloodthirsty mob, that they were not really a real thing. It's kind of using satire to make fun of that, but also driving home how important the moment was in history. It allows the actors also, to get in touch with the everyday, which is why it's so important. It allows the actors to get in touch with our common humanity, making us laugh and making us enjoy. That's also why I loved using comedy, not just because it allowed me to use satire to make fun of the era, but also because, in my opinion, the point of theater should be you're going to enjoy something, right? You want to come out at the end of the day smiling and really happy about what you saw. So that's partly why I also used comedy. Anyway, yeah, so that is really the background of my piece, which is, all I can ask for. And I really hope you enjoy watching it. Thank you.